July 9th, 1995. Daniel Sebastian, an archaeologist, drove along a winding forest road. The sun hung low. Shadows stretched between the trees. A quiet wind whispered through the branches. He had heard the stories. A town that vanished by sunset. A town which wasn't located on any map. One which was not meant to be seen. Skeptical but curious, he decided to see it for himself. Daniel's car bumped along the rocky trail of Hollow Creek Pass. The forest thickened around him, shadows stretching longer as the sun dipped. He rounded the last bend, and the trees thinned. Across the plain at the base of the mountains, faint lights flickered, rooftops emerging as if grown from the earth itself. The road felt different, silent, watching. Something about the journey felt off. Yet he drove on, unaware of what awaited him. Daniel appeared at a track road down to a town, and just as if the town had grown out of the mountains themselves. Smoke rose from chimneys, curling into the cool air. For a moment, Daniel thought he saw movement ahead, something slipping past a window or a figure behind a porch. Nothing stayed long enough to be certain. A wooden sign swayed by the road. "Welcome to Eldridge." Daniel stopped the car, stepped down and walked into the town, taking careful note of the quiet streets. This was the town the rumors spoke of, but it was not quite as the stories had described. Everything seemed ordinary, yet nothing felt right. The town held a stillness that pressed in from all sides. Shapes lingered at the edges of vision, some little movement of things which shouldn't have. Somewhere beneath the quiet, a sense of expectation waited. Surprisingly, no sign of life or a human around, just echoes of wind and dust. Daniel's alarm went off. 1 p.m. was the time. He quickly turned it off and called out, "Hello? Hello? Is anyone here?" The streets of Eldridge stretched quietly before him, as if to respond to him, still and measured, as if the town itself were holding its breath. A bell chimed somewhere nearby. Daniel turned toward the noise. It was a tavern. No door opened and no one passed through. The sound echoed unnaturally, lingering longer than it should. Ahead, a small building stood with darkened windows. It was written, "Bookkeeping" in bold letters. A library, perhaps, Daniel thought. Against all his better judgment, Daniel pushed the door open and stepped inside. Dust hung in the air. Stacks of newspapers and old books lay untouched for years. Headlines whispered warnings. Travelers who disappeared without trace. Sudden fogs that swallowed entire roads. People who never returned after nightfall. He observed a clock on the wall ticked unevenly. At times it raced, then slowed, as if time itself moved differently here. Shadows shifted at the edges of vision, too quick to catch. Footsteps echoed behind him, though the library remained empty. The stillness of Eldridge felt deliberate, rehearsed. Every movement, every sound was precise, calculated. The town existed on the edge of something he could not yet name. Alive, patient, and watching. Determined to get answers for his quest, he ventured more into the town in search of people or artifacts. Time moved differently, Daniel observed, as it was getting late, despite his alarm for 1 p.m., going off almost 1 hour ago. The sun sank lower, while Daniel entered building to building looking for one who might give him answers to what he came for. Something began to happen. Shadows stretched unnaturally along the narrow streets. Buildings seemed taller, windows darker, alleys longer than before. The town no longer felt merely still. It felt watchful. A faint whisper drifted through the cold air. Soft, shaky, barely a voice at all. "Leave before sunset." Daniel stopped. The street was empty, silent. The whisper faded as quickly as it came. He checked the time. 6 minutes past 5 p.m. "Just now," Daniel explained. Then the whisper returned. The same words, but closer now, as if whatever spoke them had moved. "Leave before sunset. Don't stay. Not tonight." Daniel turned sharply, expecting someone behind him. But the street was still empty. Not a single figure. Only his long shadow across the ground. Suddenly, windows dimmed. Corners shifted. The air pressed against him, heavier than before. Streets he thought he recognized no longer matched his memory. Angles looked wrong. Distances felt altered. Eldridge seemed to be quietly rearranging itself. The town was shifting with the dying light, and it was doing so quickly. The realization hit Daniel all at once. His heart rate spiked, pounding against his ribs. A rush of hot blood surged to his head. Whatever courage he had left drained instantly. He was scared down to his boots. He turned around to rush toward his car, the only familiar thing in this estranged town. As he ran backwards, the street twisted in front of him, darker, narrower, as if Eldridge was pulling itself closed. He barely made it 10 steps before his foot caught a half-buried log. Daniel fell hard, hitting the cold ground, breath knocked out of him. For a moment he just lay there stunned, listening to the deep hum vibrating under the earth and the slow, dragging footsteps somewhere in the dark behind him. Daniel pushed himself up slowly, dust clinging to his hands. His pulse thudded in his ears. The footsteps behind him stopped, leaving nothing but the heavy hum leaking through the ground. He forced himself to stand, eyes scanning the darkened street. Something had changed again. The buildings looked older. The paint peeled. Windows boarded. Eldridge felt abandoned, yet not empty. There was a presence he felt there. A single light flickered ahead. A building he hadn't noticed before. Tall, narrow, its sign barely hanging. It swayed in the breeze, revealing one faded word: archive. Daniel stared at it, breath unsteady. An archive meant records, history, answers, and something in him, deeper than fear, whispered that this building held the truth the town had been hiding for decades. He stepped toward it slowly, drawn in despite every warning whisper still echoing in his memory. The door creaked open on its own, revealing the darkness inside, and the real story of Eldridge began to surface. Daniel stepped inside the archive, the door closing behind him with a slow, heavy thud. Dust floated in the narrow beam of light slipping through a cracked window. Rows of tall shelves stretched into the dark, stacked with old boxes, warped books, and brittle papers. The air felt colder in here, older. Each step echoed as if the room were far bigger than it looked. He moved between the shelves, the hum from outside muffling into a low vibration under the floorboards. Then he saw it, a table in the center of the room, a single file laid open. His name on the first page, Sebastian, Daniel. Arrival, 1:06 p.m. He froze. The ink looked fresh, still wet. He reached out, hesitant, and turned the page. Photographs slipped loose. It was images of Eldridge taken decades apart. In each photo, the town appeared normal during the day and absent at night. Entire streets missing, buildings erased, people gone. He sifted deeper and found something worse. A list. Dates stretching back nearly a century. Beside each date, a name. Beside each name, one word. Taken. A floorboard creaked behind him. Daniel turned slowly, pulse hammering. A shadow moved between the shelves. Tall, slow, deliberate. Another page fluttered open on the table behind him, as if pushed by an unseen hand. He glanced down. A final entry, written bodily in rushed handwriting. Once night falls, the town chooses who stays. Daniel stepped back, breath shallow. The archive suddenly felt smaller, the walls closer, the darkness thicker, and somewhere in the room, the whisper returned. No longer faint, no longer distant, but clear. You shouldn't have come here. Run! He ran out of the archive as quick as his feet could move, sprinting down the road in any direction he could find, just to escape that voice. The streets twisted like a maze, looping back on themselves. No matter how far he ran, he ended up at the same spot where his escape had begun. Out of nowhere, before him appeared an old lady on a sackcloth. Raggedy looking, her teeth were black as dirt. She went holding on to a stick and young boy who was shedding tears. Daniel couldn't take it no more. The panic and fear consumed him like an electric shock. A shriek tore from his throat, raw and panicked, before darkness claimed him. He fell. He woke to the blaring horn of an oncoming truck. He opened his eye gradually. The morning sun was so bright it forced him to close his eyes immediately. He jumped off the road blindly, scraping his hands and knees on the gravel. Shivering on the side about what he encountered the previous day, he barely noticed the truck stop. A driver rushed over. "Are you okay, sir?" Daniel couldn't reply. His eyes were fixed on the clean road ahead. No houses, no chimneys, no archive, no Eldridge. The town had vanished completely, but its mark remained, deep in his mind, etched into memory. Daniel never spoke of what he saw that night. All he could do was write it down, trembling, knowing that some places are never meant to be found, and some truths are too heavy to share aloud.